go back just a little bit and answer the question to the viewer, the young viewer who asked us specifically to talk about workplace relationships. And workplace relationships are often influenced by those implicit biases.
Matter of fact, early on in our relationship.
Oh, I'm glad you were going there.
Early on in our relationship, and I don't know, I wasn't maybe that savvy because I used to maybe say things I shouldn't. I would turn to my wife and say, "Why in the heck did you become a social worker? Who does that?"
Yes, he did.
And at the time, I was, I had my MBA and I was in corporate America, and I was just thinking
and
that
he knew everything.
wow, okay, maybe. It was like, wow, that was so silly of me because today I'm a psychotherapist, a
Yes.
social worker.
Yes.
And actually, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I wish I had got into it much earlier.
Actually, my mother was the first social worker in our family. During that time, when we were making a pivot, he literally made a pivot.
I ended up leaving corporate America and we started the behavioral health company. And it was at that time that the business really resonated with me because, I wasn't a therapist, but it was so rewarding to go home feeling like, wow, I helped somebody.
Yes.
It's more than just, well, let me make sure these account reconciliations add up and blah, blah, blah. And that's important work too, but it was just different for me to leave knowing that maybe you kind of helped somebody.
Right.
It was a feeling I just didn't think I would have that much, respect for. But
Right.
now
in your workplace.
Yeah.
But you also said, you also owned that my relationships at work
Yeah.
over the years, he would, he'd go to work and, sometimes complain about being in the fishbowl and that kind of thing in corporate America.
Right. It was always like you were working with your friends.
My relationships at work were, hey, how's work today? Great.
Yeah.
Because when I decided to do what I do, I thought to myself, and my husband supported it fully, in terms of, well, sometimes he would say out of the way things. However, he was the one, when we moved to Wisconsin, because I did my graduate work in Wisconsin, my mindset was find out what you love to do and then find out how to make the most money doing what you love to do, which required me to have to go back to graduate school and get my master's in social work. And that was a carrot for me because the corporate world was so volatile at the time. And Walter got an offer. I think you were teaching at that moment, but before you went back into corporate, because we've made many pivots. And if you've been married as long as we have, you will make many pivots. And one of those pivots led us to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because he started working with Rockwell International. And the carrot for me, and I felt so supported, it's kind of like, he loves me. He came home one day and said, he had had his interview, and he came in and said, if I can share my bias, they told me to come home and talk to my spouse. And my initial response was, you're on your own. The kids and I are not going.
You said you are not going to Milwaukee.
Yes, I absolutely said, actually, folks, be careful what you say. You absolutely never are going to be careful if you say, I'm absolutely never going to do blah, blah, blah.
Right. And that's one of those biases.
That is all or nothing thinking, right? That's a bias. You kind of think, okay, nope, I'm not doing that. So I said I wasn't doing it, that the kids and I were not going. We're going to stay here in Fayetteville, and we can just do a commuter marriage. You can go ahead on to Milwaukee, Wisconsin on your own. We're staying here. And he comes in the door and says, he knew what I wanted to do, and he comes in the door and says, hey, this is before the digital world just took over. He said, hey, the University of Wisconsin has that Master's in Social Work program. And if I were a doggy, my ears would have went, whoop. And he says, yep, the application came in the mail today. So same day that he said, the bosses wanted me to talk to my spouse about this opportunity, he hands me the application for the Master's in Social Work program at the University of Wisconsin. That's a story. Another
And-
story that we probably need.
And we were moving,
And we were moving.
packing up the house
Right.
to head to Milwaukee. I
Wisconsin.
don't think either one of us ever thought about
Never.
Milwaukee,
There's
Wisconsin.
that word again. Never.
And
Don't say it.
Yeah, you shouldn't really say that word because lo and behold, we end up moving to Brown Deer, which is in Milwaukee County, and
Yes.
it was nice.
It was wonderful. We met wonderful people there. I completed my graduate work there. Our marriage was strengthened there. I'm going to say that. We were away from our families. We had to rely on each other. And that was a pivotal moment for us in our lives together, right?
Yeah.
Even though Walter didn't understand, the profession that I was in, he knew that it was important to me. And he watched the quality of my relationships, my workplace relationships over the years.
Yeah. But once we got into it,
Right.
the people,
Right.
that really resonated with me.
Mhm.
And it was like, you know what, I'm not getting any younger.
Right.
And that's when I decided to go back and get the second master's.
Right. Well, I'm
To
not
get
going to
the
say you
MSW.
were shallow.
Yeah.
I would say that you were.
Well, it was a bias.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was a bias based
Yeah.
on inferences that you made based on the information that you saw in the world
Yeah.
that didn't necessarily talk about all the details
Correct.
of this profession.
Yeah, because
they'll
my
give an
idea, I didn't mean to cut you
Go
off,
ahead.
but my idea of a social worker was,
Yeah.
That's the person
Child
that
Protective
comes-
Services.
yeah, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Because I didn't understand. I didn't
Right.
understand how vast the field was. So sometimes we all have these biases,
That's right.
and we don't really understand the complexities of things.
That's right.
The biases are a big deal, and we got to understand that they can impact not only how you feel, but they can impact decisions.
Yes.
Any kind of decision. I think we're going on and on about
Right.
that, but
And in the
Yeah.
workplace, you just have to be mindful that even your colleagues, those relationships at work, all of us are impacted by biases. It's what
Yes.
we bring to the table. It's our invisible knapsack full of everything, all of our upbringing, our wins, our losses, our coping skills that were healthy and our coping skills that are not so healthy. But all of that is with us.
yeah. And I
Um,
think, doing therapy, you meet people and you see yourself in those people.
Yes.
Like I have a lot of clients come in. My clients are mandated to come in because of some kind of legal record. And a lot of clients you'll hear, they'll say, well, I assaulted her because she disrespected me. Or a guy might say the same thing. It's kind of like, oh, okay, well, what's that about? Well, Mr. J, I had to get my lick back. I had to get my lick back. And you wonder to yourself, well, why did you have to get your lick back? And it's like, well, that's how we roll. That's how my people, my gang.
That's that
does-
status quo bias again. That's what we did.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Yeah. And so that programming dictates how they move. But in actuality, do you really have to get your lick back? And a lot of times the answer is no. And I think the way we think can drive us into these areas where it's dark and creepy and you get into trouble with your partner. Oh, another example. A lot of times young couples will come in, and I would hear this a lot. The gentleman might say, well, Mr. J, she doesn't love me because we never have sex. We never have sex. And then I'll turn to the lady usually and I'll say, okay, well, when's the last time you guys had sex? 2 days ago. Sir, she just said you had sex 2 days ago. What are you talking about? He's like, well, I would prefer to have sex every day, multiple times a day. And it's kind of like, wow, that's clearly a bias, because that's what he's thinking.
Right.
And he's telling himself, she doesn't even love me.
Right.
I'm like, dude, man, nobody wants to be with you that much. It's just bad thinking.
Yeah.
Some people, we're biased by the way we see things. And unfortunately, we're all a little bit self-centered. And it takes work to get out of that self-centeredness. Everybody doesn't see the world the way you do.
Language matters. So, while we're talking about biases, sometimes, like my husband just said, sometimes it's bad thinking, but it's really just biased thinking. It is how you were programmed coming up. Like, maybe in your community, in your household, maybe, some of your patients have seen their uncles or whatever, maybe they've witnessed DV in their household, like
Domestic
domestic
violence,
violence. So it's still biased thinking. And I think sometimes because language matters, when we frame it in a way that says, hey, many of us are subjected to, all of us have been programmed by our experiences and our family relationships and our generational lessons that have been passed down. But if we say, hey, status quo bias at the core just means unwillingness to change, then you're more aware now that, oh, it doesn't have to be this way, even though that's the way it's always been for me. I can change. Okay. Self-awareness is where it begins. You can begin to transform your relationships, your life, even your biases, because now you're aware of those things.
Right.
And you can make those changes.
Yeah. So not only can you have better relationships,
Yes.
you can live the life that you want.
Yes.
It's so important to be aware of these biases because they can get us in trouble.
I just want to finish implicit biases, guys. I want to talk about those, similar to what your client said. Oh, that's what we did. Implicit biases are unconscious influences, perceptions, and attitudes that impact how we relate to others. Sometimes it's called judgment. You know, sometimes people, I don't know if you've ever felt judged just because you walked in the room. You did nothing, but you felt an air of maybe ostracism or, you know, like, oh, is somebody following me? I don't know who's been followed. I have in stores, you know, because somebody assumed something about me based on their prejudices, right? These biases have developed over time. And it's at the core of what's called family programming. And this is specifically for the viewer who requested this. Absolutely think about, what were you taught? Where do your beliefs about things come from? When were your behavioral patterns formed? How were they formed? What was modeled for you? And remember, in your household, parents, especially parents of young people right now, remember, children live what they see. They live what they see. That's what that Bobo doll experiment was about, right? It was what they witnessed. And think about the community, you know, the family nucleus, the extended family. Kids are living what they see.